The Guest in Room 14-inch. True motel horror story. If you've ever stayed at one of those cheap roadside motels somewhere off the highway, you know they all feel the same. Flickering neon signs. Old carpets that smell like rain and cigarettes. Ice machines humming outside in the dark. And that strange feeling that someone might be watching you from behind the curtains. I used to work the night shift at one of those motels. And after what happened there 3 years ago, I will never work another overnight job again. The motel was called the Red Pine Lodge. It sat just outside a small town in northern Montana, right off Highway 93. Truckers stopped there all the time because it was cheap and open 24 hours. Most nights were boring. Check people in. Hand out keys. Watch security cameras. Try not to fall asleep. That was it. The owner, a guy named Rick, usually left around 9 p.m., which meant from then until sunrise. I was alone. No security. No cleaners. Nobody. At first I liked it. I was 19, broke, and needed money. The silence didn't bother me. At least not in the beginning. But there was one thing about that motel everybody talked about. Room 14. The room at the very end of the second floor. Nobody liked going near it. Especially at night. The older employees had stories. Some said guests complained about knocking sounds inside the walls. Others claimed they heard crying around 3 a.m. One housekeeper even quit after saying she saw someone standing inside the bathroom while cleaning the room. Rick always laughed it off. People love ghost stories, he'd say. But even he stopped renting out room 14 after a woman disappeared there during winter. Nobody ever found her. Her car stayed in the parking lot for 2 days before police came. The room looked normal. No blood. No signs of struggle. Her suitcase and phone were still inside. But she was gone. After that, room 14 stayed locked. At least, that's what I believed. One Friday night in October, a storm rolled through town. Rain hammered the windows so hard it sounded like gravel hitting the glass. Business was dead. By midnight only 6 rooms were occupied. I remember sitting behind the desk drinking burnt coffee while watching static crawl across the old security monitors. That's when the phone rang. Front desk, I answered. For a second, nothing happened. Then I heard breathing. Slow. Wet. Like somebody struggling to breathe through a broken nose. Hello. More breathing. Then a woman whispered. Someone is outside my room. Her voice shook so badly I could barely hear her. Which room are you in? Silence. Then. 14. My stomach dropped. I immediately looked at the booking screen. Room 14 was marked vacant. No guest. No check-in. Nothing. I figured it had to be a prank. Probably some drunk messing around. Still, something about the call felt wrong. The voice sounded terrified. I grabbed the master key and flashlight from behind the desk. The second I stepped outside, cold rain hit my face. The motel lights buzzed overhead as I climbed the metal stairs to the second floor. The hallway looked empty. But the farther I walked, the colder it felt. Room 14 sat at the very end. And the door was slightly open. Just enough for darkness to show inside. I stopped walking. Every instinct told me not to go closer. Then I heard it. Crying. Soft crying from inside the room. I forced myself forward and knocked on the door. Front desk. No response. The crying stopped instantly. Dead silence. I pushed the door open wider. The room was dark except for flashes of lightning coming through the curtains. The bed looked untouched. No bags. No clothes. No person. Nothing. But the bathroom door was closed. And I could hear something moving inside. A slow scratching sound. Like fingernails dragging across tile. I remember my hand shaking as I reached for the bathroom handle. Then suddenly. Bang! Something slammed against the other side of the door so hard I jumped backward. I almost dropped the flashlight. Then complete silence again. I stood frozen for several seconds before forcing the door open. The bathroom was empty. No person. No broken window. Nothing. Just water dripping slowly from the sink. I backed out immediately and locked the room. The entire walk back to the office felt wrong. Like somebody was following behind me. I kept hearing footsteps stop whenever I stopped walking. By the time I got back to the front desk, I was soaked in sweat. I told myself it was stress. Nothing more. But then I checked the security cameras. And that's when I saw it. The hallway camera outside room 14 showed me standing at the door. Standing completely alone. No one else. Except. Right before I entered the room. A dark figure walked past the camera behind me. Tall. Thin. Its head tilted strangely to one side. I never saw it while standing there. The figure disappeared before reaching the end of the hallway. I replayed the footage over and over. Every time my stomach twisted harder. Around 2:13 a.m., the motel lost power. Everything went black. No lights. No cameras. Nothing. The storm outside had gotten worse. Thunder shook the building. I grabbed the emergency flashlight and tried calling Rick. No answer. Then I heard footsteps above me. Slow footsteps. Second floor. Back and forth. Back and forth. I knew every guest currently staying there. None of them were above the office. Only room 14 was directly upstairs. I tried ignoring it. Then came the knocking. 3 slow knocks. Directly above my head. I looked up at the ceiling. Another 3 knocks answered. My chest tightened. Then the office phone rang again. I nearly screamed. I picked it up carefully. Static filled the line. Then the same woman whispered. "He's inside now." The call disconnected. At that point I didn't care if Rick fired me. I grabbed my keys and headed for the exit. But before I reached the door, someone knocked on the office window. I turned instantly. A man stood outside in the rain. At least, I think it was a man. He was incredibly tall. Wearing dark clothes soaked by the storm. But his face looked wrong. Too pale. Too stretched. And his smile was unnaturally wide. He just stood there staring at me through the glass. Smiling. Then slowly. He raised one finger and pointed upward. Toward room 14. Lightning flashed. For half a second the parking lot turned bright white. And when darkness returned, he was gone. I locked myself inside the office and waited for sunrise. The footsteps continued almost the entire night. Sometimes running. Sometimes dragging. Sometimes stopping directly above me. At exactly 3:07 a.m. everything stopped. Complete silence. Then the power came back. The cameras flickered on one by one. I checked the hallway monitor immediately. Room 14's door was wide open. And somebody was standing inside the doorway. Motionless. Watching the camera. The image quality was terrible, but I could still make out the figure. Tall. Thin. Head tilted sideways. Exactly like the thing from earlier. Then suddenly the camera feed cut to static. I didn't move until sunrise. The moment daylight hit, I ran upstairs with another employee who had just arrived. Room 14 was empty again. But this time something was different. Words had been scratched into the bathroom mirror. Deep enough to crack the glass. 3 words. Let him in. Rick called police, but they found nothing. Again. No fingerprints. No signs of forced entry. Nothing. After that night I quit immediately. I refused to even step inside the motel again. A few months later, the place shut down permanently. According to rumors, several guests reported seeing a tall man walking near the second floor late at night. One traveler claimed somebody stood outside his room smiling for nearly an hour. Another said he heard crying from room 14 even though the room was boarded shut. The creepiest part. Last year, a friend sent me an article online. The old motel was being demolished. During construction, workers discovered a hidden crawl space behind the bathroom wall in room 14. Inside, police reportedly found human bones. But the article disappeared less than a day later. And to this day,